To the left-hand side for Vieira, who'll play it through to Gabriel Jesus, who's in here for Arsenal. Gabriel Jesus to finish it off. Oh, what a way to do it! Gabriel Jesus seals the points for Arsenal. He's back, and he's back with a bang. Into the penalty area it goes. Gabriel's header, and it's into the back of the net. Arsenal take an early lead through Gabriel.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the daily Arsenal podcast with me, Harry Symeou.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy Friday. Welcome back to another edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. On today's episode, we're going to discuss Newcastle United's stance on Alexander Isak. We're going to talk about whether or not Arsenal have found a replacement for Aaron Ramsdale. Is Aaron Ramsdale even leaving? We're going to get into all of that. Plus, we're going to talk about Chelsea, Manchester United, and Brighton all fighting over Kieran McKenna. Vincent Kompany is going to Bayern Munich, and we'll talk about the big news around Lucas Paqueta as well. We'll do all of that on this episode of the show. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay tuned in. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure you leave a review if you're listening to us on audio. And we'll get into all of those stories on today's pod. Let's say a few hellos to some of you joining us in the live chat. We are live streaming at a much earlier time today. And I know that when I said that we were going to do 5 p.m., I said every day. It's probably going to be something more like most days. I know a lot of people said, but what about us? What about us that like to tune in the morning? So I guess if I do have to do it a little bit earlier in the day from time to time, it's not the end of the world, is it? We are going to have to put some pre-recorded editions out as well. That's just the way it is going to have to be in order for me to make sure that I stick to the schedule of producing podcasts every single day. But it's good to see some familiar faces and some slightly different names as well in the live chat box this morning. Let's say hello to Chad, who joins us from Tulsa. We've got Quez in there. Matt is joining us from Chicago. Big GZ joins us. Says, good day, Harry. Matt says, Harry, how did you end up with the San Francisco Giants hat? We need to get you a New York Yankees hat instead. I'm pretty sure that I've got a New York Yankees hat somewhere in my home. I haven't seen it for a little while, but it is knocking about somewhere. I'll be honest with you, mate. I didn't even know it was the San Francisco Giants. I just like the look of the hat, so I got it, and that's that. What else have we got? Steve says, Kompany to Munich really surprised me. You and me both, mate. Junior says, good morning, Harry. Triumph says, morning, Harry. Robert says, Harry's got a barbecue to fire up. Not today. Not today. I'll be on the radio, on your radios from 3 right through until 6 today on TalkSport 2, which means by the time I get home, it's probably a little bit late for a barbecue. That window has probably gone. Puran joins us from India. We've got Emmanuel joining us from Philly as well. Daniel is with us too. Daniel says, Kompany to Bayern. Suppose that means the Germans are going along with the Harry Kane Trophy tradition. And a big hello to Sammy as well. Okay, let's start off then with our first story. We'll begin by talking about Newcastle United and their stance on Alexander Isak. So according to reports that have emerged over the last sort of 24 hours or so, Newcastle United have set a £200 million asking price for Alexander Isak. £200 million. Listen, I really like the player. And if you said to me I could have one signing this summer, who would it be? I'd probably pick Alexander Isak above most realistic options. The problem is that Alexander Isak is no longer a realistic option when you hear things like this. Now, we've heard clubs set out their stalls really, really high going into transfer windows in the past. And over the course of that window, they've been worn down and they've had to come to some sort of compromise because the player's been pushing for it. The value of the offer is creeping up and up and up. And as a result of that, they're starting to think, well, maybe we shouldn't turn this down. we've seen this happen loads and loads of times. But if the starting point is 200 million, then you're not going to get Alexander Isak for anything less than 100 million at the absolute best case. And I just don't think Arsenal will want to spend that kind of money on a player that, I mean, I don't want to really go on about the injuries too much, but it is a thing with Alexander Isak. He is a player that they looked at in the past. We know that. And they decided at that point, at that time, that it wasn't worth going that extra mile to make the deal happen. Okay, he's come to the Premier League since then, and he's done a cracking job up at Newcastle United, which might, push you into thinking, okay, you know what, maybe this is worth going that extra mile for, because he's not only showing promise in La Liga, but he's now showing it in the Premier League, and he's doing it week in, week out, and we've played against him, and we know exactly what he's all about. But Newcastle United, as I keep saying, they're not a club that are struggling financially. They're a very wealthy club. In fact, they're probably the wealthiest club in world football, given who is behind their ownership, and who's kind of pulling the strings. So there's no desperate need on Newcastle's part. I thought that they might come to the table over the summer if Arsenal could do the groundwork behind the scenes. I'm not suggesting you should tap anybody up, because I'd never suggest that you should do anything illegal. But I wondered if there might have been some contact through some intermediaries over the course of the summer that might have put Alexander Isak in a position where he was desperate for the move, or really, really wanting it at least, and maybe pushing from his side of the fence to try and bring Newcastle to the negotiation table. But if they've set their asking price, according to this report from the Mirror, at £200 million, the best case is 120 million pounds. And then I would question if we would be going into territory that just isn't advisable, given all the issues we've mentioned about Alexander Isak in the past. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm expecting that one to go quiet. I think Newcastle are doing their bit to make that go quiet by putting out sort of valuations like that and all the rest of it. We'll see how this develops. Just the J says Wilson is leaving, not Isak. There were reports yesterday that they were looking at Jared Bowen of West Ham United and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I think a lot of us, maybe myself included, at least for a few seconds, thought, oh my God, it means they're selling Isak. No, actually, you're right. It does feel like Callum Wilson is likely to depart Newcastle United this summer. What else have we got? Just AJ also says, look, they don't want to sell the player, have to move on. Yeah, I think if those are the noises that we're getting back, if Arsenal are even trying, by the way, I don't even know that they are. I think this is one that's been led by what the fans want more than anything, this story. I like this from Big GZ. He says, Isakally, as I thought, not happening. Brilliant. What else have we got in the live chat? Lots more good mornings. Hope you're all good. Thank you for joining me as always. But yeah, Alexander Isak, it doesn't look like it's moving, guys. So maybe we should manage our expectations around this from now, so that we don't endure a summer of maybe, and then ultimately end up disappointed when we sign a 21-year-old from an Eastern European league that nobody's heard of. Maybe just prepare yourselves for that. Okay, we're going to move on to our next story right after this. We're going to talk a little bit about the tug of war, if you like, for Manchester United. I was going to say Manchester United boss, because it feels like he might end up being that. But I want to talk a little bit about the tug of war over Kieran McKenna that involves Chelsea, who have just parted ways with Mauricio Pochettino, Manchester United, who it looks like are going to part ways with Erik ten Hag after the FA Cup final, and Brighton and Hove Albion. They're all after Kieran McKenna. And I think Kieran McKenna has done a wonderful job at Ipswich Town. But I cannot for the life of me understand why he's at the top of the list for all of these football clubs. Do you know what? Brighton, fair enough. Brighton have got a track record of going out and bringing in players and managers that they see as being really, really talented, that have been through their kind of analytical system. and, who turn out to be, really, really good managers going forward. Like, think about Graham Potter, right? Just think about that bit of business for a second, right? He was at Ostersunds. He spent some time at Swansea. He got the Brighton job. Done a decent job at Brighton. And before you knew it, when Chelsea were looking for a manager, they came in and they paid a ridiculous amount of compensation to Brighton and Hove Albion to get him. So when people talk about Brighton's business model and how good it is with players, actually there are examples of where they've done it really, really well with managers as well, giving them that kind of stepping stone, that way into the Premier League, making sure that they're suited to the players that they have, to the philosophy, to the ideologies that they have. And it's worked. Okay, so I can understand why Brighton, having just lost to Roberto De Zerbi, are looking at Kieran McKenna as maybe the next Graham Potter. Okay, I get that. He's done a wonderful job at Ipswich Town, back-to-back promotions, all the rest of it. What I can't understand is why Chelsea and Manchester United are looking at this guy. As I say, really, really good job at the level that he's at. But ultimately, the jobs at Manchester United and at Chelsea entail so much more than what Kieran McKenna will have faced at Norwich. Oh my God, can you imagine the Ipswich fans heard me say that? At Ipswich Town. Jesus Christ, I'm all over the place today. The point I'm trying to make here, guys, is that it's quite simple. Everybody wants a Mikel Arteta. Everybody thinks that if you go and bring in a young progressive coach and give him time, that is the model, that is the framework, that is the example that everybody should be following. And guys, it ain't as simple as that. You need to be talented, of course. You need to learn really, really fast, especially when you're taking on a club that's massive in comparison to the clubs that you've been at before. Mikel Arteta's advantage was that even though he wasn't the main man at Manchester City, he saw what the standard was. He was well aware of what the standard was, and he learned from the very, very best in the game. Now, I'm not seeking to discredit Kieran McKenna as a coach, okay? Because I've heard so many great things about him, and I don't watch Ipswich, not Norwich, week in, week out, or I haven't seen enough of them to be able to make a real kind of informed judgment on what level he's at. But just the idea of going from Ipswich Town, where had he failed to earn promotion this season, nobody would have bat an eyelid because of where they'd come from. And they would have just been talking about what a valiant effort it was. To go from that to a pressure cooker environment like you would face at Manchester United especially, and at Chelsea, where despite what the new ownership keep telling everybody about this patient approach, it's clearly not a place where you get time. Okay, we've seen it with Potter. We've seen it now with Pochettino. And this baffling thing about the Pochettino sort of parting of ways for me is that actually Maurizio Pochettino seemed to have come through the bad period. So if you sacked him, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I don't think it would have been as big a deal. But to then part ways with him at the point where it looks like he's finally got you out of the other side. And actually the narrative around Chelsea and the conversation around Chelsea is no longer about the £1 billion group of flops, but now it's about the fact that they've come through this and the basis of a really good young team is there. And as they learn and as they develop together, that camaraderie is going to build, the connection is going to build. And actually Chelsea could be top 4 contenders next season, which is the next step, which is where they want to go after finishing 6th, of course. You're not going to get time at Chelsea, Kieran. And at Manchester United, there is so much to do and so much scrutiny. I'm not sure that that's the next move that you should be making. Not that you're going to listen to me, but I just thought I'd put my 2 pence piece in there on that. It's the same with company to Bayern, right? Again, good philosophy manager, young, all of that. They want to take him, in the right way and all the rest of it. They want someone to take them in the right direction with a longer term view and all the rest of it. But with Bayern, it's a bit like Chelsea. It's a bit like Man United. It feels like they've burned through loads of options and they've just landed on Vincent Kompany. And he might do well, just like Arteta's done well in the end. But is there any guarantee? No. And the point I'm trying to make is that everybody's looking at Arsenal from a distance and everybody's followed this project. And regardless of what they say about us not winning the league and us being a flop as a result of it, they know deep down that Arsenal have been on the up now for the best part of 4.5 years. For 4.5 years, this club has been taking steps forward rather than steps backwards. It's not stagnated. every single year. It seems to be in a stronger and stronger position, not just on the pitch, but off of it as well. And this whole project has somebody at the epicenter of it that has revolutionized the club, but also has changed the way I think that we as supporters support our club. And that's the most astonishing thing for me. The mood around Arsenal, despite not winning anything, is so much better. And that is down to what Mikel Arteta has done, to the players he's recruited, to the characters that he's wanted to bring in, to the way he's communicated with us, which I think has been excellent. All of those things are so important, and they help you get the buy-in of the fans. And if you have the buy-in with the fans, then there's less pressure on the board, there's less pressure on the club for instant gratification. And that's why Arteta, in my opinion, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on why Arteta's done such a great job, but that is the crux of it. Now, Bayern are probably thinking that Vincent Kompany might be able to do that there. Man United, Chelsea, and Brighton are all thinking that Kieran McKenna could do that there. What I would say about Kieran McKenna, just quickly, I know this is an Arsenal podcast, but it's such a big story. I feel like I've got to touch on it. The one thing I would say about Kieran McKenna is, if I were him and a job became available at a more stable Premier League club, I think I would take it. And that sounds really harsh because he's done all the graft with Ipswich. He's got them into the Premier League. Why would he abandon ship now? But I look at that Ipswich Town squad and I think it's really weak. And I think unless there's major investment, which I don't know if there's going to be over the summer, he's going to struggle to keep them in the division. And then his stock falls. And sometimes you need to take jobs and you need to make jumps when your stock is high. So I can understand why he'd be tempted by any of these jobs. But Brighton feels like a good fit for Kieran McKenna. Chelsea, Manchester United, no way. No way, in my opinion. I don't even know why they're looking at him. Another quick story I wanted to touch on very, very briefly before we get into our main story, which is, of course, around Aaron Ramsdale potentially leaving, and the guy that Arsenal are said to have identified as his replacement, is the story around Lucas Paqueta. Now, this to me is wild. Lucas Paqueta has been charged by the FA and accused of being booked deliberately for the improper purpose of affecting the betting market. An FA statement said it's alleged that he directly sought to influence the progress, conduct, or any other aspect of or occurrence in these matches by intentionally seeking to receive a card from the referee for the improper purpose of affecting the betting market in order for one or more persons to profit from betting. This is a big old allegation, right? And he's been, of course, being investigated since, I think it was last summer. This has been talked about. We know that Manchester City were interested in signing him and they didn't. They backed out of the process. They backed away from him from fear of this becoming a thing, and it really, really has now. The games that the FA charges relate to are games where West Ham played Leicester in November 2022, a 1-1 draw on the 12th of March 2023 with Aston Villa, a 3-1 win over Leeds on the 21st of May 2023, and a 1-1 draw with Bournemouth on the 12th of August 2023. I think this is a really good point from Wesbird in the chat, right? How the hell do they prove that is even true? And I agree with you. This is what makes cases like this so complicated, because how do you ever prove one's intention? Can you ever actually definitively prove one's intention when it's your word against theirs? I don't know if you can. It's not like, I mean, this is nowhere near as severe, obviously, but it's not like it's a murder and they found forensics on the weapon that was used. Or do you know what I mean? Like, there's no. How do you figure this? Like, how do you definitively say that that was his intention? You feel that they've got to be quite sure to have taken it to this point. But this could mean the end of Lucas Paqueta's career. And I think for him, that must be really, really difficult to deal with, particularly if he hasn't done anything wrong. And I'm not one of these people to say guilty, guilty, guilty. I really do believe in innocent until proven guilty with most things, because I think that, we do have a tendency nowadays in the modern day to kind of label people as things without really knowing all the facts. But if you think about the fact that Stratford Town defender Keenan Isak got a 10-year ban for spot fixing, he was getting booked on purpose, apparently, as part of a betting scheme with friends. If you think about the severity of that, a 10-year ban, and then you bring that into your thinking around the Paqueta situation, you could be talking about the guy's career ending. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say, he's guilty or he's not, because the truth is I don't know. But I just think for me, this is a really, really difficult, thing to prove, and you got to be as close to shore as you can possibly be. I'm assuming that the due diligence has been done. I'm assuming that there is strong evidence for it to come to this point. And West Ham have a big problem here. Julian Lopetegui, who's just taken over as the club's manager, has a big, big problem here because this is his best player. I think a lot of people would argue, maybe outside of Jared Bowen, maybe you throw Mohamed Kudus into the mix as well, but this is one of his best players. This is a player that West Ham were valuing last summer at 80-odd million quid. Well, that value has just disappeared into thin air. So it's a problem for Paqueta, it's a problem for Lopetegui, it's a big old problem for West Ham United as well. I'll get some of you guys' thoughts on this in just a second from the live chat. Let's see what you guys are saying. Tudor says apparently there was another Brazilian on the bet with him that also got yellow cards in the league. I don't know about that, mate. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that's come from, so I couldn't verify it for you. DS Electronics Unlimited says, why all the betting from players now? Is it money? It just seems strange, doesn't it? It's not like they don't earn enough money. Do you know what I mean? So I don't understand it. Steve Stone says about the only thing they could use is strange betting activities, I suppose. Very subjective and weak at best, in my opinion. Raul says, but he'd only be banned from playing in the UK, wouldn't he? I don't know. Because I know that with previous cases, similar cases, and I can't ever recall a case where a player as high profile as Lucas Paqueta in a league as high profile as the Premier League was charged with doing it not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. But I know that when, for example, there was things found in Italy, what the Italian authorities then did was go and raise it to FIFA, and they were asking for that ban that they had, administered to be carried into other sort of footballing governing bodies as well. So basically, they wanted the ban to be upheld by FIFA, which would mean, or UEFA in some cases, which would mean that actually under that jurisdiction you would be banned. Not just in the country whereby the offence is said to have taken place. So this is a really, really interesting one. I think if this does move forward and he does get a severe and lengthy ban, I do fear for him and believe that this will be something that is upheld overseas as well. Wesbo says verbal exchange evidence maybe would be the only way, but still, yeah, just don't know. Just don't know. Okay, short pause, and we're going to turn our attentions to the main story. Have Arsenal found Aaron Ramsdale's replacement? We'll get into that right after this. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
Welcome back to the podcast. Okay, let's touch on our main story. Have Arsenal found Aaron Ramsdale's replacement? Is the England international even leaving? I guess that's the best place to start with this, right? So as it stands at this moment in time, I have no information to say that Aaron Ramsdale is definitely leaving the club this summer. We know that there were suggestions that he could be joining Newcastle United, that he himself came out and rubbished. However, I still think that there might have been something in that. That's my suspicion. I think that obviously it's not something that he'd want to get out there, and it's especially in the lead up to the final weekend of the season. He wouldn't have wanted that being out in the public domain, and he doesn't want to weaken his negotiation position or anything like that moving forward, nor the clubs, of course. So I think all of that, take it with a pinch of salt, that there probably is a chance that Aaron Ramsdale has been holding conversations or has at least been approached by intermediaries, representatives, etc., because the summer is around the corner and he's simply not playing at the moment. Is he banging the door down to leave? I don't know, is the honest answer to that. I think that if he's not now, that will be the reality at some point, because he's too good a goalkeeper to accept playing second fiddle anywhere. Okay, that's not just. Let's not be snobs and say, well, it's Arsenal, he should be grateful that he plays for this great club, blah, blah, blah. No, Aaron Ramsdale's a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers are a different breed. They need to be playing week in, week out. There are very few goalkeepers, I think, in world football that can come in and out of a team and perform at a really high level without being affected by the lack of rhythm that sometimes comes from just not being involved in football matches that often. I think Ortega at City, for example, is a really good example of that. I actually think when Ramsdale's come in on a couple of occasions this season, when we played Brentford and Raya wasn't eligible, he looked shaky at points. And that was probably because, A, you're massively eager to impress and to prove people wrong, the people that have ultimately selected somebody else over you. And B, you're not in the rhythm of it, right? You're not in the rhythm of coming out and claiming crosses in a match situation. You're not in the rhythm of having to play passes when under pressure in a real life match situation in a stadium full of 60,000 people. There's so many factors that come into play when you are on the peripheries and on the sidelines. And so you can understand, maybe can't excuse, but you can understand why performance levels for those that come in and out sides just aren't the same as those that are playing regularly. It's fair enough. So is he banging down the door to leave? I don't know. But my suspicion is that by the end of the summer, Aaron Ramsdale will probably be playing for another football club because, as I say, I think he's too good to accept playing second fiddle. And I think that he needs to think about his own career as well, as much as I think he loves being at Arsenal Football Club. There's a whole big world out there, and Aaron Ramsdale will feel he deserves to play. The player that Arsenal are being linked with as Aaron Ramsdale's potential replacement is a Dutch goalkeeper who goes by the name of Justin Bijow. Currently plays his football for Feyenoord over in Rotterdam, the Dutch side. And if you don't know who he is, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know loads and loads about who he is, but if you don't know who he is, I'm going to show you a clip that will make you familiar with Justin Bijow, because you have definitely 100% seen this clip. We talk about Ben White as being the biggest S-house at the football club. I'll tell you what, though, if this guy comes in, it looks like he's going to give Ben White a run for his money, because have a look at this. You'd have definitely seen this clip going around. This was Feyenoord playing an away game, and the opposition, Twente, I think it was, went on an attack. Out came Bijow. He cleared it out for a throw-in, and then he runs out and he throws the extra ball onto the pitch to prevent FC Twente from being able to take that throw-in quickly and potentially catch him out of position. This is just brilliant. He received a yellow card for it, of course, but have a look at this again. He takes the ball out of play. He goes and picks up the spare ball. Did he pick up the spare ball or the one that he kicked out? Either way, the attacker's gone to pick up another ball or pick up the ball, and he's thrown another one onto the pitch to prevent them breaking away quickly and causing his team a problem. I love that. I love that, because to think of that in that moment, it shows a level of intelligence. Some would argue it's more housery than intelligence, but whatever. I'm all for that. I love it. Skywalker in the chat says, I'm from the Netherlands. Bijow is a good second keeper. He could have been the number one for the Dutch national team, but his injury record is unfortunate. I'm going to come on to that in just a second. Can you just clarify as well that I'm saying his name right? Is it Bijow? Is it? I've heard some people say BIJLOW, and I don't want to get it wrong. So yeah, Aidan Wheeler says this guy's shenanigans look perfect for Arsenal. He's like Martinez 2.0. That's a crazy goalkeeper. Tudor says that would go to VAR here, probably take half an hour as well. Steve Stone says such quick thinking. It is quick thinking. It really, really is, isn't it? Look, what I did earlier on this morning, I watched some clips of him making saves. Looks like a pretty good shot stopper. Looks like someone who has the potential to perform at a really, really high level at the time. Injuries, though, have definitely been a problem for him. And I read a piece this morning on him which detailed lots and lots of injuries that he has suffered in his career. I just want to read you an extract from a scouting report that I found this morning on Justin Bijow that was written and published on the Scouted Football website back in September 2022. This is what it said. Bijow projects confidence on the field. He's athletic and aggressive, throwing himself into packs to claim crosses and putting his body on the line to get anything he can in the way of a shot. He's a strong shot stopper whose good body shape puts him in strong positions to propel himself. His quick feet get him set, and he is explosive off the mark. This extends itself to when he is drawn outside of his 6-yard box to make saves one-on-one. He is quick to leave his area and can make quick adjustments to the movements of the on-rushing attackers. With the ball, he's an adept short passer, but can at times be reluctant to propel the ball forward directly with his distribution. And again, it mentions, his ability to come out and catch crosses. Now, I had a little look at Justin Bijow on FB Ref earlier this morning. I know Tom also did something similar on the Gooner Talk TV. Shout out to Tom. Make sure you go over there, give him a follow, give him a subscribe. I'm not going to bring up all of the statistics and all of the scouting information that was on that website. You can go and check it out yourself over on FB Ref. But the things that jumped out to me, two particular metrics really jumped out to me. He's in the 99th percentile, which means he's better than 99% of his peers that he's been compared to at coming out and claiming crosses. Okay. And the other one was the number of defensive actions that he, actions outside of the penalty area. Again, he's in the 99th percentile. So you can understand why he might be seen as a good deputy to David Raya, because if you look at his skill set, it's actually quite similar. And because it's quite similar, it means you don't have to change the way that you play that much if he needs to come into the side. Will he be happy with coming in and being second fiddle? A bit like we've just said, Aaron Ramsdale probably won't. I don't know. But he is someone that we're supposedly linked with. He is someone that we're supposedly interested in. And we're going to keep an eye on how this one develops. How much will he cost? I have no idea. In fact, let me check what his value is on Transfermarkt. And I know that it's not always the gospel or anything like that, but it does give you some kind of indication. He's 26 years old, so he's not a kid. He's fairly experienced, you'd imagine. Played 17 times in the Eredivisie this season, so he started 50% of Feyenoord's games, conceded 14 goals, kept 8 clean sheets, made 4 appearances in the Champions League as well, conceded 7 goals in that time. Has 8 caps for the Netherlands, and according to Transfermarkt, his value is at around about 13 million euros. Now, I don't think you'd get him for 13 million euros, but I don't think you'd pay much more than that. Realistically, what we're talking 20, 25 million euros. Is that a lot of money? I reckon you can generate that money from the sale of Aaron Ramsdale. So if Aaron Ramsdale wants to go, and this is the guy that Arsenal think would be a good fit and would make sense in terms of the replacement, then I'm all for it. Can't say I know a load about the player, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to. But again, he is another one that joins the list. We've got so far the list of sort of breakdown pods. We've got Sesko, we've got Edison, we've got Yusuf Fofana, who we added to the list yesterday by popular demand because of you guys in the chat. And now we've got Bijow, the Feyenoord goalkeeper. So from next week, we'll start to work our way through some of those and produce them as and when those rumors are really heating up and hotting up, and then there is that desire or that clamor to find out a little bit more about them. But yeah, he seems like a really proactive goalkeeper, which is what Arsenal want. He seems like he ticks a lot of the same boxes that David Raya does, which is good. Experienced at a big club, experience playing on the international stage. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. A Skywalker, who is one of our Dutch listeners, has provided some brilliant insight on him. He says you are pronouncing it the right way. He's also good with penalties, and he changed to a goalkeeper at the Feyenoord youth system. Okay, interesting. Knowing him, he definitely wants to challenge Raya for the number one. Well, we want that, don't we? Like, we do want that. We want someone that it's a hard one, right? Because you need someone that isn't going to kick up too much of a stink based on the fact that they're number two, but at the same time has enough desire to challenge David Raya that it keeps David Raya on his toes, but also keeps them on their toes and ready for any opportunities that come along. So yeah, he could be the one. We'll see. I am going to leave it there, guys. Got a dash, but we will be back tomorrow with a mailbag episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. We might record it a little bit later on in the day and maybe get some FA Cup final reaction in there too. I'll see how tomorrow pans out because, of course, that game takes place, doesn't it, between Manchester City and Manchester United at 3:00. If you've got any questions, don't put them in the live chat. Put them in the comments section after the stream finishes so that I can pick them up. Alternatively, if you are signed up on our Patreon page, you can send me them via that. Remember, the link is in the description. It is free to sign up over the course of the summer. So if you'd like to do that, you can. If you'd like to go one further and support me with the Chronicles of a Gooner by becoming a paid member, you can do that as well. But there's no obligation. Look, we've only got 52 likes on the board, which is nowhere near good enough considering how many of you are watching. Let's try and get that up to as close to 100 as we possibly can. And if you fancy a bit of Friday afternoon radio, you can catch me on TalkSport 2 with Kwaku Afari from 3 through until 6 p.m. UK time. We'll be looking at that FA Cup final, I'm sure. We'll be talking about the managerial merry-go-round, I'm sure. We'll be talking about Kieran McKenna, I'm sure. Loads and loads to get into. But thanks for tuning in as always, and I'll see you all on the next one. Until next time, take care of yourselves. All the best. Goodbye.